I texted, "I can't stop thinking about you," to the wrong number. The cold CFO replied, "Same." The legal investigator slides a document across the table. "We have evidence your promotion was influenced by your relationship with Ms. Sterling." I stare at the timeline. Every email, every meeting, weaponized against us. The woman I love could lose everything because of me. Outside, the entire company is watching, waiting for us to fail. They want proof we're corrupt, that this isn't real. But they don't know what I'm willing to risk. They don't know how this started. With a humiliating text sent to the wrong number at midnight. A mistake that became everything. If you want to hear uncensored, too hot for YouTube stories, check out my Patreon in the description. Tell us where you are watching from and subscribe. I hit send before my brain could intervene. The little swoosh sound felt like victory for approximately 4 seconds. Then I saw the name at the top of the conversation thread. Not Jamie Chen, marketing director, whose number I had saved with 3 heart emojis and a pizza slice. Vivian Sterling, chief financial officer, whose contact information lived in my phone with all the warmth of a tax audit. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might actually be sick on my own carpet. Vivian Sterling did not receive drunk texts. Vivian Sterling did not receive any texts that weren't meticulously professional, color-coded by priority, and formatted with appropriate salutations. Vivian Sterling was ice-sculpted into human form and poured into designer suits that cost more than my monthly rent. She had made a junior analyst cry in a budget meeting once just by looking at his projections in silence for 45 seconds. She was beautiful in the way winter is beautiful. All sharp edges and dangerous elegance. The kind of woman you admire from a great distance while wearing proper protective gear. And I had just sent her a confession meant for my ex-girlfriend. I stared at my phone screen like it might spontaneously combust if I wished hard enough. The little delivered notification sat there, mocking me with its efficiency. My hand started shaking. This was it. This was how my career died, not through incompetence or scandal, but through wine and autocomplete, and the universe's apparent commitment to destroying me in the most humiliating way possible. I should explain. 3 months earlier, I had been a reasonably functional human being. I was Morgan Reeves, senior marketing manager at Caldwell Industries, 29 years old, good at my job, decent at parallel parking, and catastrophically bad at noticing when my girlfriend of 2 years was falling out of love with me. Jamie had ended things with the kind of careful kindness that somehow hurt worse than cruelty. "You deserve someone who's all in," she'd said, which was such obvious code for "I'm not all in," that I'd actually laughed. Then I'd gone home and cried for 3 days straight while eating ice cream directly from the container, like a film character who had lost all dignity. That was 11 weeks ago. I had spent the time since then pretending to be fine. I showed up to work. I smiled at appropriate intervals. I delivered campaign presentations without once breaking down in front of the executive team. But at night, alone in my apartment with the cat I'd gotten in the breakup, I was a mess of regret and overthinking, and that specific brand of loneliness that makes you text your ex at midnight. Except I hadn't texted my ex. I had texted the one woman in the building who could fire me without needing approval from anyone. My phone buzzed. I nearly dropped it. The screen lit up with a new message from Vivian Sterling. My entire nervous system went haywire. This was it. The professional but devastating response. The "please see me first thing tomorrow morning" that would precede my dignified execution. I forced myself to look. Same. I read it 3 times. Then I read it again. 1 word, 4 letters, 0 explanation. Same. Same what? Same mistake? Same number of glasses of wine? Same level of horror at receiving an inappropriate text from a subordinate? My brain scrambled for interpretations and came up with nothing that made sense. I typed and deleted 5 different responses. I'm so sorry. Delete. That wasn't meant for you. Delete. Please don't fire me. Delete. I can explain. Delete. What do you mean same? Delete. In the end, I sent nothing. I turned off my phone, buried my face in a throw pillow, and made a sound that my cat interpreted as either grief or a territorial challenge. He hissed and left the room. I didn't sleep. I watched the ceiling fan rotate in the dark and mentally updated my resume. At 3 a.m., I Googled how to recover from career-ending text message and found nothing helpful unless my career had ended due to sending explicit photos to my boss, which at least would have been a more interesting story. By the time my alarm went off at 6, I had made 17 different plans. Quit. Transfer departments. Fake my own death. Move to a different country. None of them seemed dramatic enough to match the scale of my humiliation. I got dressed in my most professional outfit, the dark blue suit I saved for presentations to the board. If I was going down, I was going down looking competent. My hands shook while I applied mascara. I gave myself a pep talk in the mirror that mostly consisted of, "You're fine, you're fine, you're completely fine," delivered in a voice that suggested I was absolutely not fine. The commute felt like traveling to my own execution. Every red light was a stay of execution. Every green light brought me closer to doom. I walked into Caldwell's marble lobby at 7:45 with my heart hammering against my ribs. Vivian Sterling arrived at exactly 8 o'clock. She always did. I knew this because I had never once managed to arrive before her, despite trying. She moved through the lobby like she owned it, which technically she might have for all I knew about her private investments. Charcoal suit today, perfectly tailored, hair pulled back in a style that probably had a French name I couldn't pronounce. She was carrying her usual leather portfolio and a coffee in a minimalist ceramic travel mug that screamed expensive taste. Our eyes met across the lobby. I waited for the summons, the cold stare, the barely perceptible head tilt toward the elevators that would mean, "My office, now." She nodded. Once. The same minimal acknowledgement she gave everyone. Then she walked to the elevators and disappeared into one. That was it. I stood there feeling like I'd just survived something but couldn't identify what. My colleague Marcus appeared at my elbow. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Rough night," I managed. "Aren't they all?" He grinned and headed toward the coffee station. I made it to my desk without incident. No email from Vivian, no message from HR, no security escort to collect my belongings. Just a normal Thursday morning with the usual chaos of campaign reviews and budget requests, and the endless stream of internal messages that filled corporate life. By noon, I had almost convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing. Then I saw her in the hallway outside the executive conference room. She was listening to something the VP of Operations was explaining with aggressive hand gestures. Her expression was the usual mask of polite attention that gave away nothing. But when her eyes flicked to me for half a second, something in them changed. Not anger, not disapproval. Something I couldn't name. She looked away immediately. I walked past feeling like my skin was on fire. At 2:17 p.m., my phone buzzed with a message from an internal number. My heart stopped. Then I saw it was from Priya, our graphic designer, asking if I'd reviewed the mock-ups yet. I sent back a thumbs-up emoji and tried to remember how to breathe normally. The rest of the day passed without catastrophe. By 5 o'clock, I was exhausted from the adrenaline crash. I gathered my things, said goodbye to the usual colleagues, and headed for the elevator. The doors were closing when a hand stopped them. Vivian Sterling stepped inside. We were alone. The doors slid shut. The elevator began its descent. 18 floors between us and freedom. I counted them in my head like a prisoner marking days. "Morgan." Her voice made me jump. I turned. She was looking straight ahead at the brushed steel doors, her profile perfect and unreadable. Yes? I managed to sound almost normal. The text last night. A pause. I assume it was meant for someone else? Heat flooded my face. Yes. I'm so sorry. It was completely inappropriate and unprofessional, and it will never happen again. I didn't mind. The elevator seemed to stop moving, though the numbers kept changing. I stared at her reflection in the doors. She still wasn't looking at me. You didn't mind, I repeated, because clearly my brain had given up on forming original thoughts. No. 14th floor? 13th? 12th? When I said same, she continued in that same calm, measured voice. I meant it. The elevator reached the ground floor. The doors opened onto the busy lobby. Vivian stepped out without another word, her heels clicking against marble as she walked away. I stood there until the doors tried to close on me. That night, I sat on my couch with my cat and a glass of water because wine had officially betrayed me, and stared at my phone. Same. I meant it. There was only one interpretation that made sense, and it was the most impossible one. Vivian Sterling, the woman who had reduced grown men to nervous wrecks with a single raised eyebrow, had just told me she couldn't stop thinking about me. I picked up my phone, put it down, picked it up again. Finally, I typed, "I don't know what to do with that information." Her response came 3 minutes later. "Neither do I." And that was how it started. Not with a dramatic confession or a planned moment, but with a mistake and a truth neither of us had meant to say. The next few days were strange in a way I couldn't explain to anyone. At work, Vivian was exactly as she had always been. Cool, professional, devastatingly competent. She ran meetings with the efficiency of someone who had optimized every second of her day. She reviewed financial projections with the focus of a surgeon. She spoke in complete sentences that never included filler words or unnecessary emotion. But now I noticed other things. The way her hand tightened briefly on her pen when someone challenged her analysis without having done the research. The slight adjustment of her collar when she was buying time to formulate a response. The fact that she drank her coffee black and always arrived exactly at 8. And the texts. They came at odd hours. Never during work. Always after 7 p.m., when presumably she had left the office and entered whatever private life existed beyond her professional armor. Thursday, 9:34 p.m. I've been thinking about what you said. Me, 9:37 p.m. Which part? Her, 9:40 p.m. The part about not being able to stop. Friday, 10:15 p.m. This is complicated. Me, 10:18 p.m. I know. Her, 10:22 p.m. I don't do complicated. Me, 10:25 p.m. Could have fooled me. Her, 10:30 p.m. Fair point. The messages were brief, careful, like we were both testing the temperature of water we knew might scald us. But they kept coming. Every night one of us would start the conversation, and the other would respond. And we'd dance around what we were actually saying until one of us said goodnight. I told no one. Who would I tell? Hey, I'm having a text relationship with the CFO who terrifies everyone in the building. It sounded unhinged even in my own head. Meanwhile, Jamie kept sending me messages asking if I wanted to meet for coffee and talk. I ignored them all. Whatever closure she thought we needed, I had moved past it into stranger territory. The first time Vivian smiled at me, it happened in the break room on a Tuesday morning. I was making terrible coffee from the machine that everyone complained about, but no one ever fixed, and she walked in to refill her expensive ceramic mug. We were alone. The room smelled like burned coffee and someone's leftover lunch from the fridge. "That's undrinkable," she said, nodding at my cup. "I've survived worse." That sounds ominous. I glanced at her. She was looking at the coffee machine with an expression of mild distaste, but there was something else there. Amusement, maybe. A crack in the professional facade. "College dining hall coffee," I said. This is luxury by comparison. You have low standards. I have realistic standards. She turned then, and for the first time since the elevator, we were looking directly at each other without the buffer of work or other people. Her eyes were gray, which I had known intellectually, but had never really noticed. Storm gray, the kind of gray that made you think of winter mornings and expensive hotels and things you wanted but knew you shouldn't touch. "I like that about you," she said quietly. Then she filled her mug and left before I could formulate a response. I stood there holding my terrible coffee and feeling like something had shifted. Not broken, not opened. Just shifted, like a door that had been locked for years developing the first crack in its frame. That night she texted, "I've been thinking about our conversation." Me. "We've had several." Her. "The one about standards." Me. "What about it?" Her. "I think mine might be too high." Me. "For coffee?" Her. "For everything." I stared at that message for a long time, then I typed, "Maybe that's not a bad thing." Her. "It is when it keeps you from taking risks." Me. "Is that what this is? A risk?" 3 minutes passed. Then, "Yes." My heart did something complicated. "What if it's worth it?" Her response took longer. I watched the 3 dots appear and disappear twice. Finally, that's what I'm trying to determine. On Wednesday, I had to present the quarterly marketing results to the executive team. I'd done this dozens of times. It was routine. Boring even. But this time, Vivian would be in the room, and I would have to stand at the head of the table and deliver numbers while pretending I hadn't spent the last week texting her after midnight. I prepared like I was defending a dissertation, every slide perfect, every transition smooth, every data point verified 3 times. The conference room was already full when I arrived, the CEO at the head of the table looking vaguely interested, the COO scrolling through his phone, department heads in their usual seats, and Vivian, sitting 3 seats from the CEO, her laptop open, her attention apparently on the screen in front of her. I set up my presentation. My hands were steady. My voice came out clear. I walked them through the numbers, the campaign performance, the ROI analysis, everything I'd practiced. Vivian didn't look up once. I told myself that was good. Professional. Appropriate. But a small, irrational part of me wanted her to look. Wanted to see if there would be anything in her expression that acknowledged what existed between us outside this room. When I finished, the CEO nodded. "Strong quarter. Any questions?" Vivian's hand moved to her notebook. "One question." Her voice was perfectly neutral. The social media campaign for the product launch, the engagement rates dropped in week 3. What was the corrective action? I met her eyes. They gave away nothing. We identified the content fatigue and pivoted to user-generated testimonials. Engagement recovered within 4 days. And the budget impact? Minimal. We reallocated existing resources. Effective. She made a note. "Thank you." That was all. Nothing in her tone or expression suggested anything beyond professional interest. I should have been relieved. Instead, I felt oddly disappointed. The meeting ended. People filed out. I was packing up my laptop when I realized Vivian was still in the room, closing her own computer with careful precision. We were alone again. "Good presentation," she said without looking up. "Thank you." "The social media pivot was smart. We have a good team." She clicked her laptop closed, stood, adjusted the strap of her portfolio over her shoulder. All of it performed with the same controlled grace she brought to everything. Then she walked past me toward the door, and as she did, her hand brushed against mine on the table. Barely a touch. Possibly an accident. Except her fingers caught on mine for half a second. A deliberate, gentle pressure that sent electricity straight through me. She didn't stop walking. Didn't look back. Just continued out the door like nothing had happened. I stood there staring at my own hand like it might explain what had just occurred. That night, the text came at 11:07 p.m. I wanted to look at you during the presentation. My pulse jumped. Why didn't you? Because I wouldn't have been able to stop? I sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. Would that have been so terrible? In a room full of people? Yes. What about now? A longer pause. Then, now is different. How? Now I can admit that you're all I thought about during that entire meeting. I pressed my hand to my chest like I could physically slow my heartbeat. That's a dangerous thing to say to someone. I know. What are we doing, Vivian? The 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally. I think we're being reckless. Is that a bad thing? Ask me again when we've survived it. Friday after work, I went to the bookstore 3 blocks from my apartment because my cat had knocked over my coffee onto the book I'd been reading, and I needed to know how it ended. The store was one of those old places that smelled like paper and dust and had shelves crammed so full that books were stacked horizontally on top of vertical rows. Classical music played quietly from speakers I couldn't see. I was in the literature section, debating between 2 novels when I heard her voice. That one's better. I turned. Vivian was standing at the end of the aisle holding a canvas tote bag and wearing jeans. Jeans. I had never seen her in anything but immaculate suits. The jeans were dark, perfectly fitted, worn with a simple black sweater and ankle boots. Her hair was down. I hadn't known it was that long. She looked younger, softer, approachable in a way that made my chest tighten. You're stalking me, I said, because my brain had apparently decided humor was the only defense against whatever was happening. You sent me your location last week when you were recommending that coffee shop. I had. Completely forgotten. That's a flimsy excuse for surveillance. A smile touched her mouth. I prefer to think of it as convenient coincidence. That's what all stalkers say. Do you want me to leave? No. The answer came too quickly, too honestly. She walked closer, and I became acutely aware that we were in public, not at work. No conference tables or professional barriers. Just 2 people in a bookstore on a Friday evening. Why this one? She asked, nodding at the book I'd been considering. The other one has a sad ending. I'm trying to avoid those lately. Wise policy. You sound like you're speaking from experience. Something flickered in her expression. I've read my share of sad endings. And lived them? She looked at me fully then, and the careful distance she maintained at work was gone. In its place was something raw, something that made me forget we were standing in a public aisle. Yes, she said quietly. I wanted to ask, wanted to know what had made her so controlled, so careful, so convinced that high standards were safer than risk. But the bookstore didn't feel like the right place for that conversation. Coffee? I offered instead. There's a place around the corner that's much better than that one I recommended. She hesitated. I watched her weigh it. Professional boundaries, workplace complications, all the excellent reasons to say no. Okay, she said. We walked to the coffee shop in comfortable silence. The evening was cold, early autumn turning sharp. I shoved my hands in my coat pockets. Vivian carried her tote bag and her new book and looked like she'd stepped out of a very expensive advertisement for someone's idea of literary sophistication. The coffee shop was warm and crowded. We found a small table near the back. I ordered something with too much syrup. Vivian ordered black coffee, which tracked perfectly with everything I knew about her. We sat across from each other, and for the first time I saw her unsure. She wrapped both hands around her mug like she needed something to hold on to. This is strange, she said. Good strange or bad strange? I'm not sure yet. I smiled. That's honest. I'm trying to be. She looked at me over the rim of her mug. This isn't something I do. Drink coffee? Get involved with colleagues. The word involved hung between us. Is that what this is? I don't know what else to call it. We could call it two people getting to know each other. That sounds deceptively simple. It could be. She shook her head slightly. Morgan, I'm your superior. There are policies, power dynamics, implications. I know. And you're not concerned? I'm terrified, I admitted. But I'm also sitting here having coffee with you, so apparently terror isn't enough to stop me. A real smile broke across her face then, unguarded and startling. It transformed her completely. You're unexpectedly brave. I'm unexpectedly reckless. There's a difference. I'm not sure there is. We talked for an hour, not about work, about books and the city and terrible coffee and her story about going to law school before deciding she hated it and switching to finance. I told her about my degree in English literature and how I'd stumbled into marketing because I needed a job that paid more than adjunct teaching. You wanted to be a professor? She asked. I wanted to teach people to love difficult books. Turns out that's not a lucrative career path. Do you regret it? I thought about that. Sometimes. But then I remember trying to explain Victorian poetry to hungover undergraduates at 8 a.m., and marketing feels like a gift. She laughed. The sound was quiet but genuine, and I realized I would do embarrassing things to hear it again. When we finally left, the street was darker, colder. We walked toward the train station together, our shoulders occasionally brushing. Thank you for the coffee, she said. Thank you for the book recommendation. I didn't actually recommend one. You told me which one was better. That counts. We stopped at the entrance to the station. People flowed around us. The city hummed with its usual Friday night energy. Morgan, she said, and there was something careful in her voice. I need you to understand something. Okay. If we do this, if this becomes something, it changes everything. Your career trajectory, how people see you, how they see me. Office relationships are complicated enough without adding the fact that I'm an executive and you're not. I know. And you're still interested? I looked at her. Really looked. At the careful way she held herself, the intelligence in her eyes, the vulnerability she was trying very hard to hide. Yes. She exhaled slowly. Then we need to be smart about this. Agreed. No one at work can know. Understood. And if it becomes too complicated, we'll figure it out, I interrupted gently. One step at a time. She studied me for a long moment, then she nodded. One step at a time. I wanted to kiss her. The impulse was so strong I had to literally step back to stop myself. Good night, Vivian. Good night, Morgan. I watched her descend into the station, and only when she'd disappeared did I realize I was smiling like an idiot. The texts that night were different. Her, 10:47 p.m. I had a good time tonight. Me, 10:49 p.m. So did I. Her, 10:52 p.m. I keep thinking about what you said, about being reckless. Me, 10:54 p.m. Having regrets already? Her, 10:57 p.m. No, that's what scares me. Me, 11:02 p.m. Maybe fear isn't always a warning. Maybe sometimes it's just a sign that something matters. Her response took several minutes. When it came, it was just 3 words. I hope so. The following week, we fell into a pattern. At work, we were scrupulously professional. She was still the CFO who ran meetings with terrifying efficiency. I was still the marketing manager who delivered presentations and managed campaigns. We sent emails with appropriate formality. We spoke in conference rooms with careful distance. But after work, we existed in a different world. We met for coffee, for walks along the river where the autumn trees were turning, for dinner at quiet restaurants far enough from the office that we wouldn't run into colleagues. I learned that she was from Connecticut, old money that she both resented and couldn't fully escape. that she'd spent her 20s trying to prove she was more than her last name and had built her career through brutal competence. That she was 36, though I'd guessed younger. That she'd been engaged once, years ago, to a man her family approved of who had ended things when she finally admitted she was gay. "It was a relief," she said one evening as we walked along the waterfront. The city lights reflected on the dark water. When he left, I'd been lying for so long I'd almost forgotten what honesty felt like. "How long ago?" 8 years. "And since then?" She was quiet for a moment. "A few relationships, nothing that lasted. I was too focused on work, too controlled. Women want passion, not someone who schedules emotions into quarterly reviews." "That's not true, isn't it?" I stopped walking, which made her stop too. "Vivian, you're not as controlled as you think you are. Evidence suggests otherwise. You texted me back that first night. Same. That wasn't controlled. That was honest." Her expression softened. "That was reckless." "Maybe reckless and honest are the same thing sometimes." She looked at me with something that might have been wonder or might have been fear. "You have a very optimistic view of my character flaws. I have an accurate view of someone who's scared of wanting things." The words landed harder than I'd intended. I watched her absorb them, saw the way her jaw tightened slightly. "You're right," she said finally. "I am scared." "Of what?" "Of this becoming something I can't control. Of losing my reputation. Of hurting you because I'm too damaged to do this properly." I reached out and took her hand. It was the first time I'd deliberately touched her outside of that moment in the conference room. Her fingers were cold. I wrapped mine around them. "What if you're not damaged?" I said quietly. "What if you're just careful because someone hurt you?" She looked down at our joined hands. "That's a generous interpretation." "It's the true interpretation." She turned her hand in mine so our palms pressed together. "You're going to ruin me, aren't you?" "I'm going to try my best not to." "I think you'll fail. Then we'll be ruined together." She laughed, and it sounded almost like relief. "That's not a comforting thought. It's the best I've got." We stood there for a moment, hands clasped, the city noise fading into background. Then she said, very quietly, "I want to kiss you." My breath caught. "Then kiss me." "Here?" "Why not?" "Because I've spent 8 years being careful about public displays of affection. Maybe it's time to stop being careful." She looked around. The waterfront was busy but not crowded. People walked past, absorbed in their own lives. No one was paying attention to two women holding hands in the autumn dark. Vivian turned back to me. Then, with the kind of deliberate courage that must have cost her, she leaned forward and kissed me. It was brief, soft. The kind of kiss that felt like a question. When she pulled back, her eyes searched mine. "Okay?" she asked. "More than okay." She smiled, and it was the same unguarded smile from the coffee shop, the one that made her look like someone who hadn't forgotten how to hope. We kissed again, longer this time, and I stopped caring about who might see us. That night, the texts were different again. Her. 11:23 p.m. "I can't stop thinking about kissing you." Me. 11:25 p.m. "We could do it again." Her. 11:27 p.m. "When?" Me. 11:29 p.m. "Tomorrow?" Her. 11:31 p.m. "I have a dinner meeting until 8. Me. 11:33 p.m. "Then, 8:30. My place." A long pause. Then, "Are you sure?" Me. "Completely." Her. "Morgan, if I come to your apartment, I'm not sure I'll be capable of keeping this slow." My heart hammered. Who said I wanted slow? Another pause. Then, "This is a terrible idea." Me. "Probably." Her. "I'll be there at 8:30. The next day at work was torture. Every meeting felt endless. Every email took twice as long to read. I kept checking the clock like a teenager waiting for the end of school. At 6 p.m., Vivian was still in her office. I could see her through the glass wall on a call, her expression serious. She caught me looking and raised one eyebrow. I looked away quickly, heat flooding my face. At 7:30, I left the office and went home. I cleaned my apartment in a frenzy, put away the dishes, hid the embarrassing self-help books, changed the sheets, lit a candle that was supposed to smell like autumn leaves but mostly smelled like aggressive cinnamon. My cat watched me with judgment. "Don't look at me like that," I told him. "You have no room to talk. You fell off the counter twice yesterday." He meowed dismissively and went to sit in the window. At 8:27, my phone buzzed. Her. Outside. I practically ran to the door. Opened it to find Vivian standing in the hallway, still in her work clothes, but with her hair down and her expression vulnerable in a way I'd never seen. "Hi," she said. "Hi." We stared at each other for a beat. Then she stepped inside. I closed the door, and before I could offer her wine or coffee or any of the things a reasonable host would offer, she kissed me. Not carefully. Not like someone testing the temperature. Like someone who had been holding back for too long and had finally decided to stop. I kissed her back with everything I'd been feeling for weeks. Her hands found my waist. Mine slid into her hair. We stumbled backward until my back hit the wall, and she pressed against me with a sound that went straight through me. "Morgan," she breathed against my mouth. "Yeah? She stopped herself. "What do you want?" Her eyes met mine. "You. I want you. Then have me." She kissed me again, deeper this time, and I stopped thinking about anything except the way her body felt against mine, the sound of her breathing, the warmth of her mouth. We made it to the couch. Barely. Her jacket ended up on the floor. My shirt got unbuttoned somewhere in the middle of a kiss that felt like it might actually stop my heart. Her hands moved over me with a gentleness that contradicted the urgency in her breathing. "Is this okay?" she kept asking. And every time I answered yes, sometimes with words, sometimes with touch, sometimes with the way I pulled her closer. When we finally paused, breathless and tangled together, she looked at me with wonder. "What?" I asked. I didn't expect this to feel like this. "Like what?" "Like something I've been waiting for without knowing it." I traced the line of her jaw with one finger. "I'm glad you stopped being careful." "I'm still terrified." "Good." "Me too." She smiled and kissed me again, softer now, and I thought maybe this was what it meant to be reckless. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward anyway, to choose hope over safety, to let someone in even when every instinct screamed to protect yourself. We stayed on the couch for hours, talking and kissing and learning the geography of each other. She told me about her first relationship in college, the one that had terrified her because it made her realize who she was. I told her about Jamie, about the careful kindness that had somehow hurt worse than anger. "Do you still love her?" Vivian asked quietly. "No," I said, and realized it was true. I think I loved the idea of being loved, but it wasn't right. We weren't right. And this? This feels right. She pulled me closer. Even though it's complicated? Especially because it's complicated. Around midnight, she said she should go home. We stood at the door, neither of us wanting to be the first to step away. "Tomorrow?" I asked. "I have meetings until 6. "After?" She smiled. "After." I kissed her once more, slowly, trying to memorize the taste of her. When she left, I leaned against the closed door and realized I was smiling so hard my face hurt. My cat appeared from wherever he'd been hiding. He rubbed against my legs and purred. "Yeah," I told him. "I know." The next few weeks were the happiest I could remember being. We were careful at work, professional, distant, but after hours, we were inseparable. She came to my apartment. I went to hers. which turned out to be a stunning loft with floor-to-ceiling windows and furniture that looked like it belonged in magazines. We cooked dinner together. She was surprisingly good at it, precise and methodical in a way that made me laugh. We watched terrible movies and good movies and fell asleep on her couch, tangled together. We talked about everything, childhoods and families, and the strange paths that had led us both to Caldwell Industries. I learned that she was funny in a dry, unexpected way. That she had a sister she was close to and parents she spoke to out of obligation. That she'd wanted to be an architect once, but her family had pushed her toward law. She learned that I was messier than I pretended to be. That I had anxiety dreams about presentations. That I could quote entire passages of novels I'd read years ago. At work, we kept our secret perfectly. Or so I thought. Then one afternoon, I was in the elevator with Marcus when he said casually, "So, you and Vivian Sterling." My heart stopped. "What about us?" He grinned. "Come on, you think I don't notice the way she looks at you in meetings now? Like you're the only person in the room?" I tried to keep my face neutral. "You're imagining things. I'm observant. You're bored. I'm happy for you," he said as the elevator doors opened. "She's terrifying, but in a hot way. You could do worse." He walked out before I could respond. I texted Vivian immediately. "Marcus knows." Her response came 10 minutes later. "How?" "He's annoyingly observant." "Damn. What do we do?" 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, "Nothing. We're not doing anything wrong. Let him think what he wants." But I worried. Because Marcus knowing meant other people might know. And other people knowing meant complications. Whispers. Speculation. The kind of office gossip that could damage reputations. That night, I brought it up. We were at her place, having just finished dinner. She was washing dishes with the same methodical precision she brought to everything. I sat at the counter watching her. "Are you worried?" I asked. "About Marcus?" "About people finding out." She was quiet for a moment, her hands still in the soapy water. "Yes." "Because of your career?" "Because of yours." I stood and moved to stand beside her. "Mine?" "Morgan, I'm an executive. If this becomes office knowledge, people will assume things. That you're getting special treatment. That you're using me for advancement. It doesn't matter that none of that is true. The optics are terrible." "I don't care about optics." "You should." She turned to face me. "I've seen what happens to women in situations like this. The man usually walks away unscathed. The woman gets labeled. I refuse to let that happen to you." "Then what do we do?" Her jaw tightened. "I don't know." We stood there in her expensive kitchen with the city lights glowing beyond the windows, and for the first time I saw the full weight of what we were carrying. "Maybe," I said slowly, "we should tell HR. Make it official. That way everything is documented and above board." She looked at me like I'd suggested we go skydiving without parachutes. "That's a bold strategy. But it's honest. Honesty doesn't always protect you." "No, but secrets definitely don't." She sighed and pulled me closer. "When did you become the wise one in this relationship?" "Someone has to be. You're too busy being terrified." She smiled despite herself. "Fair point." "So we tell HR?" Another sigh. "Yes, we tell HR." The next day, we sat in the HR director's office like 2 teenagers called to the principal. Vivian explained the situation with her usual precise language. Dating. Consensual. No conflict of interest since I wasn't in her reporting chain. The HR director, a woman named Patricia who had seen everything in her 20 years at the company, listened without expression. When Vivian finished, Patricia folded her hands on her desk. "This isn't ideal," she said. "We're aware," Vivian replied coolly, "but it's not prohibited." Patricia pulled up something on her computer. You're correct that there's no direct reporting relationship. However, I'll need to document this formally, and I'd advise both of you to be mindful of how this relationship is perceived in professional settings. We will be, I said. Patricia looked at me with something that might have been sympathy. Morgan, I want you to understand that this puts you in a vulnerable position. People will talk, they'll make assumptions. Your work will be scrutinized more closely than it was before. I understand. And you're prepared for that? I glanced at Vivian. She was looking at me with an expression that said, "You can still back out." I turned back to Patricia. "Yes," I said firmly. "I'm prepared." Patricia nodded. "Then I'll file the documentation. You're both free to go." We walked out of her office in silence. In the elevator, Vivian said, "That was terrifying. But we did it." "Yes." She looked at me. "Are you sure about this? About us?" I took her hand, right there in the elevator. "Completely." She squeezed my fingers. "Good." The news spread faster than I expected. By the end of the week, everyone knew. Most people were fine about it. Some were surprised. A few were clearly uncomfortable. And Jamie sent me a text. "Heard the news? Proud of you for being brave. Coffee sometime?" I stared at the message for a long time. Jamie, who had broken my heart with careful kindness. Jamie, who I'd been drunk texting the night I accidentally sent that message to Vivian. Jamie, who represented everything I'd thought I wanted before I learned what wanting actually felt like. I showed the text to Vivian that night. We were at her place, curled up on her couch with wine and takeout. "Do you want to see her?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. "No." I set my phone down. "That chapter's closed." "You sound certain." "I am." I turned to face her fully. She was safe, easy. We looked good together on paper, but I was never fully myself with her. I was always performing some version of who I thought she needed. Vivian's fingers traced patterns on my knee. And with me? With you, I can't perform even if I wanted to. You see through everything. Something vulnerable crossed her face. "Is that a good thing?" "It's terrifying, but yes." She pulled me closer and I went willingly, tucking myself against her side. Her apartment smelled like expensive candles and her perfume, cedar and something warm I couldn't name. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city glittered. "The office has been interesting this week," she said quietly. "Interesting how?" Peterson from accounting made a comment in the executive meeting. Something about whether personal relationships were affecting budget allocations. My stomach dropped. "What did you say?" I showed him 3 years of data proving marketing's ROI has been consistent regardless of current events. Then I asked if he had any other baseless speculation he'd like to share with the room. Despite everything, I smiled. "You eviscerated him. He deserved it." Her jaw tightened. "But it's starting, Morgan. The whispers, the implications. People looking for evidence that you're getting preferential treatment." "Am I?" She pulled back to look at me. "You know you're not." "I know that. But perception matters." "Yes." She sighed. "It does. So what do we do?" "We continue being impeccable. Your work speaks for itself. My decisions are documented and justified, and if anyone has an actual concern, they can take it to Patricia." It sounded reasonable, professional, but I could hear the tension underneath. The old fear that someone would find a reason to hurt her again. I took her hand. "Hey, we're going to be fine." "You don't know that." "No. But I believe it anyway." She looked at me with an expression I was starting to recognize, wonder mixed with disbelief, like she couldn't quite accept that I was choosing her despite everything. "How are you so steady about this?" she asked. "I'm not steady. I'm scared too. But I'm more scared of losing you than I am of office gossip." "That's foolish." "Probably. but I've spent too much time being careful, playing it safe, staying small so no one would have a reason to hurt me. I'm done with that. Vivian kissed me then, soft and deep, and I tasted wine and something that felt like gratitude. The next week, Marcus invited me to lunch. We went to the sandwich place 2 blocks from the office, the one with questionable hygiene ratings but excellent pastrami. "So," he said, once we'd found a table, "Vivian Sterling, is this the part where you tell me I'm insane?" "No, this is the part where I tell you half the office is jealous and the other half is a bite of his sandwich. But I don't think you will. I saw the way she looked at you in the quarterly review, like you were the only thing in the room that made sense." Something in my chest tightened. She said that? She didn't have to. "Morgan, I've worked here 5 years. I've never seen Vivian Sterling look at anyone the way she looks at you. Not once." I thought about that for the rest of the day. The way she looked at me. Like I mattered. Like I was worth the risk. That night, I told Han 2 months. "I know. Marriage is a significant commitment. I'm aware. So why are you looking at me like that?" "Like what?" "Like you're considering it." I shrugged. "Maybe I am." For a long moment, she just stared at me. Then she laughed. This helpless, startled sound. "You're completely insane." "Probably. Is that a deal breaker?" She crossed the small kitchen and kissed me, hard and urgent. "No." "Good." We abandoned dinner. The vegetables sat half-chopped on the cutting, her mouth tracing paths across my skin that made me forget my own name. I thought this was what it meant to be fully alive, not safe, not careful. Just present and wanted in return. Afterward, we lay tangled together in the dark, her fingers drawing lazy circles on my shoulder. "I love you," she said quietly. It wasn't the first time she'd said it, but something about the way she said it now, soft and certain in the aftermath of intimacy, made my throat tight. "I love you too, Titi." I turned in her arms so I could see her face. "Vivian. Too much?" "No." I kissed her. "Not enough." She smiled, and in the dim light from the window she looked younger, unguarded. "Ask me again in 3 months?" "Ask you what?" "You know what?" I did. And the fact that she was already thinking about it made me feel like I might actually float off the bed. 3 months, I agreed. Good. We fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and I dreamed of futures I'd stopped. Lowe's senior marketing manager was influenced by your personal relationship with Ms. Sterling. I received that promotion before we started dating. The complaint suggests the relationship began earlier than disclosed. It didn't. I kept my voice steady. We disclosed our relationship as soon as it began. Everything is documented with HR. Nevertheless, we need to investigate. He slid a paper across the table. This is a timeline of your interactions with Ms. Sterling over the past 6 months. Can you prove that? Can I prove a negative? No. But I can show you that my performance reviews have been consistent for 3 years. My promotion was based on merit, recommended by my direct manager and approved through the standard process. Vivian wasn't involved in the decision. Patricia spoke up. Morgan's correct. I've reviewed the documentation. Ms. Sterling recused herself from any decisions involving Morgan's department after they disclosed their relationship. David Chen made he'll cooperate fully, I said, though my stomach was churning. The meeting ended. I walked back to my desk feeling like I'd been hit by something large and fast-moving. Marcus appeared at my elbow. You look like you need a drink. It's 2 p.m. I didn't say when. I told him what happened. His expression darkened. Someone filed a complaint? Who? They wouldn't say. That's garbage. He leaned against my desk. You know what this is, right? Someone's jealous. Or someone has a grudge. Or looking exhausted, still in her work clothes, but with her hair down and tension written across her shoulders. "They interviewed you?" I asked. "For 2 hours." She closed the door behind me. "Morgan, this is exactly what I was afraid of. We haven't done anything wrong." "That doesn't matter. The investigation itself is damaging. People will assume there's merit to the complaint. Your reputation will be questioned. So will yours. Mine can survive it. I'm established. I have years cost you." "Yes, I do. And I'm choosing you anyway." Her eyes filled, just slightly. "Why?" "Because you're worth it. Because what we have is real. Because I'm not interested in a life where I play it safe and wake up in 10 years wondering what would have happened if I'd been brave." A tear slipped down her cheek. I reached up and caught it with my thumb. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know. But we're going to be okay." "You can't promise that." "No. But I can promise I'll stay. I can crisis." Eventually she pulled back. "What do we do now?" she asked. "We wait for the investigation to conclude. We keep being honest. And we trust that the truth will be enough. And if it's not, then we figure out what comes next. One step at a time, remember?" She managed to smile. "One step at a time." The investigation took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of scrutiny and sideways glances and the feeling that everything I did was being watched for signs of impropriety. I kept my head down. "Investigation is complete." I sat, my hands gripping the armrests. "We found no evidence of policy violation. Your promotion was merit-based and properly documented, Miss. Sterling appropriately recused herself from decisions involving your department after the relationship began. There is no indication of favoritism or improper conduct." Relief flooded through me so fast I felt dizzy. "So I'm cleared?" "Yes, both of you are." She paused. "However, I want to be clear about something. This InvestVet at my door with expensive wine and the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in weeks. I pulled her inside and kissed her like I'd been drowning and she was air. "We made it," I said against her mouth. "We did." "Never doubted it for a second." She laughed. "Liar." "Okay, maybe a few seconds. But mostly I was confident." We opened the wine, made dinner together in my small kitchen, falling back into the easy rhythm we'd developed. And when we finally sat down to eat, she reached across, dangerously romantic. "Good, because I have something to ask you." Her eyebrows rose. "Is this what I think it is?" "Depends on what you think it is." "Morgan." "It's been 3 months," I interrupted. "You said to ask again in 3 months." "That was 2.5 months ago." "Close enough." I stood up, suddenly nervous. "Vivian Sterling, I know this is insane. I know it's fast. I know that we've barely been together and we've already survived one crisis and there will probably be more pace between us," and kissed me so hard I stumbled backward into the counter. "Yes," she said against my lips. "Yes, you ridiculous, impulsive, wonderful woman. Yes." I laughed and kissed her back, and my cat chose that moment to jump onto the table and knock over the wine glasses. We broke apart to find red wine spreading across the tablecloth. "That seems like an omen," Vivian said. "A good one or a bad one?" "With you? Both. Probably." We cleaned up the mess, laughing, and then she pulled thinking about resigning. My heart stopped. "What?" "Not from the company, from my position. I could move to a consultant role, external advisor. No direct authority over employees. No policies about workplace relationships." "You'd do that?" "I do a lot of things for you, Morgan, including step back from a job I'm good at so we can have a relationship that isn't constantly scrutinized." "Vivian, I've been thinking about it for weeks, even before the investigation. I'm tired of being what comes next, together." I kissed her, tasting salt and wine and the future. Together. We told Patricia the next day. Her expression suggested she'd seen this coming. You're resigning? She asked Vivian. Transitioning to a consultant role. I've already discussed it with the CEO. He's amenable. Patricia looked between us. And you're engaged? As of last night, I confirmed. She shook her head, almost smiling. You two don't do anything halfway, do you? Apparently not. Vivian op hands. We walked through together, fingers intertwined, and I felt people notice. Saw heads turn, heard the whispers start. Let them look, I thought. Let them talk. Vivian squeezed my hand once and I squeezed back. Marcus caught up with us in the parking garage. Is it true? Is what true? I asked innocently. The ring. The resignation. The entire office is losing its mind. Vivian held up her left hand. No ring yet, but she'd started wearing a thin silver band on that finger as a plufter he left. I turned to her. You're handling this remarkably well. Handling what? Being the subject of office gossip. She pulled me close, right there in the parking garage. Morgan, I spent 8 years hiding, performing, making myself smaller so no one would have a reason to whisper. I'm done with that. Let them talk. I have you. That's all that matters. I kissed her, not caring that anyone could see. When we pulled apart, she was smiling. What? I asked. I'm happy. It's Strammed. She kissed my temple. 3 to 4 weeks for delivery, I read. We can wait. Can we? We've waited this long. A few more weeks won't kill us. But the waiting was hard. Not because I needed a ring to know we were engaged, but because I wanted the world to know. Wanted the visible symbol. Wanted to be able to introduce her as my fiancé instead of my girlfriend. Still, we kept busy. Started planning. Nothing concrete, just conversations about what we wanted. Small wedding or largont no. They're not thrilled about me being gay. They tolerate it at best. I'm sorry. It's fine. I made peace with it years ago. But her voice suggested otherwise. I ran my fingers through her hair. If they don't come, it's their loss. Thank you for saying that. I mean it. You deserve family who loves all of you, not just the parts that make them comfortable. She tilted her head up to look at me. You're going to be my family. Yes. That's enough. More than enough. Owe it. Is that? Open it. She sat down slowly, picked up the box, and opened it. The ring caught the light, sending small rainbows across the walls. Morgan, she breathed. Put it on. She did, her hands shaking slightly. It fit perfectly. She held her hand up, turning it to catch the light. I love it. Good. Because you're stuck with it now. She launched herself at me, kissing me hard, and we tumbled backward onto the couch. I'm stuck with you, you mean? Same thing. Not entered to toast us. To Morgan and Vivian, he announced, raising his plastic cup. Who proved that wrong numbers can lead to very right things? Everyone laughed. I caught Vivian's eye across the room. She was smiling, really smiling, and I thought about how far we'd come from that first mortifying text message. Speech, someone called. I shook my head. No speeches. Come on. Vivian stepped forward. All right, if you insist. She waited for the room to quiet. 6 months ago, I received a troll. She looked at me. I spent years being careful, playing it safe, protecting myself. And then you came along and made me realize that the safest thing I could do was take a chance on something real. So thank you for that text message. Thank you for staying. And thank you for saying yes when I barely knew how to ask the question. The room erupted in applause. I crossed to her, not caring that everyone was watching, and kissed her. That was quite a speech, I said. I'm full of surprise. You're a consultant. Semantics. We went home, opened the wine, made dinner together, and when she raised her glass for a toast, I saw tears in her eyes. "To new beginnings," she said. "To us." We clinked glasses, drank, and then I pulled her close and held her while she cried. Relief and fear and joy all mixed together. "I'm okay," she said after a minute. "I know. This is just overwhelming." "I know that too." She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "How are you so calm about everything matters?" "You, me, the fact that we're getting married. The rest is just performance." "So what do you want to do?" She thought for a moment. "Something simple. Something that feels like us." We scrapped the big plans, booked a small restaurant with a private room, invited 40 people, hired a jazz trio, kept the flowers minimal and the food excellent. "Better?" I asked. "Perfect." The night before the wedding, we stayed apart. Tradition, Vivian's sister insisted, despite our protests. Any and warm, spring flowers blooming, everything soft and bright and new. I got ready with my mother fussing over my hair and my friend checking my makeup and everyone crying happy tears. The dress I'd chosen was simple. Ivory silk, fitted, elegant without being fussy. "You look beautiful," my mother said, tears streaming down her face. "Don't cry yet. Save it for the ceremony." "I can't help it. My baby's getting married." At the restaurant, I waited in a small side room while everyone gawked me most was her face, the way she was looking at me, like I was everything. I reached her, took her hands. "Hi," I whispered. "Hi." She was crying. "You're so beautiful." "You're not so bad yourself." The officiant cleared her throat. "Shall we begin?" We nodded, not looking away from each other. The ceremony was short. We'd written our own vows. Vivian went first. "Morgan, when I met you, I thought I had my life figured out. I thought control was the same as strength, and distance so you couldn't stop thinking about me." And I replied, "Same," because I didn't know what else to say. But the truth is, I still can't stop thinking about you. About the way you see the world, the way you make me feel seen, the way you've let me in, even when it terrified you. You're the smartest, strongest, most beautiful person I've ever met. And I'm the luckiest person in the world because you chose me back. I promise to stay, to fight for us, and to love you exactly as you are, for the rest of May's exactly what we'd wanted. Good food, better music, people we loved. Vivian's sister gave a speech that made everyone laugh and cry. Marcus gave one that was mostly inappropriate but ended sweetly. My mother held Vivian's hands and told her she was part of the family now, and Vivian's parents showed up. We were halfway through dinner when they arrived. Vivian's face went white when she saw them. "They said they weren't coming," she whispered. "Do you want me to?" "No. I should talk to thee." This was what she'd needed all along. Not their approval, just their presence, their acknowledgement that she mattered. I hung back, giving them space. When Vivian finally pulled away from her parents, she looked for me, found me, smiled through her tears. I went to her then, and she introduced me properly. "Mom, Dad, this is my wife." My wife. The words sent a thrill through me. Her mother hugged me. "Thank you for making her happy." "She does that on her own. I just get to be there for it." I asked. "Better than okay." She kissed me. Perfect. We danced until late. First dance to a jazz standard, soft and slow, then everyone else joined and the room filled with movement and laughter and joy. Around midnight we slipped away, said our goodbyes, hugged everyone and escaped to the car Marcus had decorated with "Just Married" and streamers. "That was perfect," Vivian said as we drove away. "It really was. I can't believe we're married." "Get used to it," she laughed. "I'm good." Another kiss, deeper. "But first we have a honeymoon. 2 weeks in Italy. I can't wait. Neither can I." We sat there in the quiet, the city humming beyond the windows, and I thought about how far we'd come. From a wrong number text to this, to marriage and family and futures. Thank you, Vivian said quietly. For what? For texting me that night. For staying. For choosing me over and over even when it was hard. You make it easy. Liar. I smiled. Okay. You make 5 years later, we're still here. Still in the city. Still working. Though Vivian started her own consulting firm and I moved into a director role at a different company, we have a daughter now. Adopted her when she was 3 months old. She's 4 now, all wild curls and big questions, and her mother's sharp intelligence. Sometimes I look at our life, at the home we've built and the family we've created, and I can barely believe we started with a wrong number. Vivian caught me doing exactly that this morning. We were in the kitchen. She was making coffee. Our daughter was in the living room watching cartoons. Weekend morning chaos. What are you thinking about? Vivian asked. That text message. The wrong number. She smiled. Best mistake you ever made. Best mistake we both made. She kissed me, quick and sweet. I love you. I love you too. Our daughter appeared in the doorway. Moms, can we get pancakes? Sure, I said. With chocolate chips? Don't push your luck. She grinned and ran back to the TV. Vivian wrapped her arms around me from behind, chin on my shoulder. This is pretty great, isn't it? Pretty great doesn't cover it. No, she agreed. It doesn't. And she was right. Because sometimes the best things in life start with mistakes, with wrong numbers and accidental confessions and the courage to reply same when you probably shouldn't. Sometimes recklessness and hope are the same thing.